Everything worth doing in this life takes time. People online, internet marketers, they will always try to say, oh, you get your dream body in 3 months. Oh, get your dream business in 6 months. Oh, but everything takes time. And oftentimes it is helpful to go in with some irrational exuberance, being like, yeah, I'm gonna be making $10,000 a month in the next 3 months, or I'm going to find my dream partner this month. I'm going to get my dream body this month. However, that mindset, although it can be good to start, it is often detrimental. And we fall into an area where we're like, oh, okay, we have informed pessimism. When we start, we have irrational optimism. We're like, you can't tell me we're going to make this work. And oftentimes you do need to have that delusional level of self belief where you're like, no matter what happens, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to have a successful business. I'm going to have my dream body. I'm going to have my ideal partner. But it does take time. So usually when we're about a month, maybe even just a few weeks into our journey, we're like, oh crap, this is way harder than I thought. However, everything worth doing takes time. Everything worth doing takes time. It's something you really need to internalize. I remember my mom telling me, she's a judge, and she said, Jack, and she calls me Jack, if I knew how hard it would be to win the election, I probably would have never gotten started. So sometimes it is good to go in with some irrational optimism, to be so delusional in ourselves and in our abilities that we're going to make it work, because you can make it work. You can get anything in this life as long as you continue to try, you continue to make 1% improvements, and you continue to push forward. However, it can be helpful that when you're in these periods of informed pessimism where you're like, oh crap, this is a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be, to zoom out and think, okay, what are some realistic timelines for achieving this? And I was writing some of these down. I think to get your dream body, a body you really like, at least the 80% version of it, I think 6 months. 6 months, you can get the ideal body you want. That's if you're tracking your calories. That is if you're tracking your macros. If you're going to the gym at least 3 times a week. If you're getting your 10,000 steps in, you can have your ideal body in 6 months. That's my belief, at least to the 80% proficiency. You can find your ideal partner in about a year. That is, I think, a very reasonable time estimate where you're going on enough dates. And this all implies that you are actively working towards these goals. You're learning about relationship science. You're learning about social dynamics. You're learning about confidence, how to present yourself. Because everything is a skill. Everything from dating to getting the dream body. When you're getting your dream body, you have to learn how to do hip thrusts. You have to learn how to properly do squats. And little by little, you build up that proficiency. When you're first going on dates, you have to start refining your picker. You have to say, is this guy actually good for me? Does he actually align with what I want in my life? How do I quickly determine whether this guy is an F-boy or he's actually interested in a long-term relationship? Those things are all skills. Even if I find the guy I want, am I able to keep that person attracted, keep them interested in me? Am I portraying myself as the amazing person I know myself to be? These are all skills that you develop. As an example, the business idea. If anyone tells you, oh, you can have your dream business in 3 months, they are lying. They're lying. They're lying. They are lying to your face. It takes about 1 to 2 years. You have to almost zoom out and be like, you know what? I'm taking an MBA program essentially. And I don't say go get an MBA. I say go start your business and view it like an MBA program. MBA programs last 2 years. You're going to have to learn how to run meta ads, learn how to create content, learn how to build a website, learn how to do sales calls, learn how to market yourself. There are so many underlying skills to do anything that you want in this world, but you can learn it. So if you zoom out in these times of when you're like, just feeling like I'm feeling beat down, instead of stopping, zoom out and be like, you know what? It's going to take longer than I thought. And that's all right. Maybe you didn't find your dream partner after a year. That's all right. Think of all the skills. And sometimes it's very helpful to write down in a journal and be like, look at all the micro wins. I went on some amazing dates. Some didn't work out, but I learned a lot about myself. I learned about the behavior that I would accept and the behavior that I would reject. And that is so helpful when you can look at the micro wins, because everything at the end of the day is kind of this Kaizen philosophy. And if people are not familiar with Kaizen, it's this Japanese philosophy that you're trying to get 1% better every single day. And those 1% improvements, they don't seem like much. They don't seem like much at all. But when they compound and they keep adding on to one another and they keep multiplying, That's when you start to see if you just become 1% better every single day for a year, you will become 37 times better in that year. So when you're in these periods of uninformed, or when you're in informed pessimism and you're like, dang, nothing is kind of going how I want it to go, as long as you are making those 1% improvements and you are continuing to stay on the path, you will succeed. You will succeed. I know it can be difficult. I know it can be difficult. And one thing to note is you kind of have to fall in love with the process of making improvements. Maybe you just moved up a little bit in your hip thrust or a little bit in your squats. Maybe you just became a little bit, better at doing pull-ups. Whatever it is you do. Maybe you just became a little bit better at red flags and at marketing yourself and at getting around the communities of people that would have your ideal partner in. Maybe you just became a little bit better at marketing. That is good enough. Continue to stack those micro improvements, because when you stack those micro improvements over time, they don't look like much at the moment, but they become a lot. And when you look back after a year, 2 years of making all of these tiny improvements, you're like, wow, I've come so far. And you have to fall in love with the act of doing those processes, because people think that oftentimes, oh, I'm going to be so happy once I have my ideal partner. Oh, I'm going to be so happy once I have my ideal business. Oh, I'm going to be so happy once I have my ideal body. But really, the ultimate changes that we make are on the journey itself, right? So if you look at many famous movies and you can look at the storytelling arc, Rocky Balboa, I don't even think he won his last fight, but it was the person he became along the journey. Many times in the movies we love, it's the person that's set out to accomplish some big goal. They often don't do it. There's not always a happy ending, but it's the person you become. Even if you do not get the exact replica of the body you want, it's the person you became, that person that was disciplined, that person that was consistent, that person that had the mindset of somebody that is actively working towards their goals. Maybe finding your ideal partner ends up taking 3 years, 5 years, but it's the person you became. It's the social life you built. So maybe you're thinking, okay, I want to find my person. I want them to be, sophisticated. So I'm going to go join a bunch of art organizations. Maybe your person doesn't end up being in those art organizations, but you became much more cultured. You became much more networked. You grew a social circle of people that are actively pushing you forward and are interested in the things you're interested in. That is a great development. And we have to track these micro wins and be like, wow, I've come so far. Because we cannot expect, and you'll see this in popular movies, is like movie stars and people that accomplish great things, they end up becoming somewhat sad. They become sad when they reach their goal, and they end up just setting a new goal right immediately. They're like, oh, I reached it. Mr. Beast reached a certain subscriber count, and then he's like, he literally it didn't impact him at all. He just set a new goal. And these are people often that can never fully be happy. But if you are happy when you're doing the work, when you're making those micro improvements, and you're constantly thinking, how can I get just a little bit better in a way that's not like, oh, my life's going to be ruined if I don't get better, but in a way that is actively thinking, wow, I am making such great improvements in my life. I'm continuing to push the ball forward. And that is the most exciting thing, because you will not be happy when you reach the destination. You become happy when you enjoy the work and when you realize the person you become on the journey there. So I'll leave you with this. What are your goals? How can you actively become 1% better at those different tasks? And hey, at the end of the day, it's tough to get your dream body, get your dream partner, get your dream business goals all in one season. I like to say there's a season of life for everything. So pick a priority thing. Maybe it's your business. Maybe it's finding your partner. Maybe it's your ideal thing. And that's going to be your tier one thing. You're going to say, I'm going to focus this season, this quarter, this 3-month block. I'm going to focus on getting my dream body. Okay. And then you're going to have a secondary goal. And you're like, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to focus on getting my ideal partner. So you've got 2 of those. It's very difficult to make progression on all of them. You usually just say, hey, I'm going to pick 2 in a season. I'm going to commit to focusing on those. The other is likely going to be in maintenance mode. But I'll leave you this. Pick your goals, make active work to them, write down the mini successes you've had. And when you're in these feelings of informed pessimism, zoom out of your goal and be like, I've come so far, I'm going very far, and I will make it. I just need to continuously make these 1% improvements. You're going to make it. I love you. Ciao.